amid mounting reports that the U.S. and Iran have renewed discussions aimed at reviving their nuclear deal, even in a so-called mini agreement that would involve Iran capping its uranium enrichment program in return for the unfreezing of some of its foreign-held assets. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made clear today during a visit to the plant of Israel Aerospace Industries that his government is firmly opposed to any such new arrangement with the Tehran regime.
We are determined to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Our strong opposition to returning to the original nuclear agreement contributes to the American decision not to do so. We also made it clear to our American friends that the limited agreements are also not acceptable to us. In any case, as I make it clear to them, make it clear to the world, and will make it clear here again, we will do everything we need to defend ourselves on our own against any threat.
And joining us now in the studio, our senior correspondent, Owen Alterman. And Owen, interesting, because in the past week, we've had analysts in the studio suggesting that perhaps Israel could live with a so-called mini agreement that it just involves capping Iran's nuclear uranium enrichment program at 60% in return, not for the lifting of sanctions, but just the unfreezing of some of its assets. And that deal could involve other aspects of the Iranian threat, let's say, such as its ballistic missile program. But Benjamin Netanyahu, coming out today saying, no, not even a mini agreement would be acceptable to us.
Yeah, saying it in the morning, Kalev, at the top of Israel's weekly cabinet meeting, and then later on in the day in a visit to the Israel Aerospace Industries facility, again having his picture taken in front of planes or what looked like drones and big missiles. In a sense, Kalev, almost bringing to mind the pictures we see of Iranian leaders themselves doing that. So wondering if that was a kind of response of Netanyahu to them. But look, obviously this is an Israeli prime minister who's staked out a particular position on this over the course of his career, has had a great deal of success at advancing that policy, looking at what he did back in 2015, even if the agreement passed, it passed, albeit having been crippled, and then that laying the seed that later grew into Donald Trump pulling the United States out of the deal. Over the past number of months, there had seemed to be a kind of meeting of the minds of the Biden administration and Netanyahu government on that. Obviously, that has now fallen to the side. The United States and Israel are differently situated on this issue, right, as much as the officials from both governments like to tell us otherwise, right? Those Iranian missiles in those pictures are not being fixated on Washington or New York. They are being targeted. They are potentially targeting us. And those are the demonstrations that the Iranians are making. At any rate, Kalev, I think Netanyahu over the course of time, I think has been more forthright about his actual position on Iran. If at one point he had said he doesn't oppose any deal, he just opposes a bad deal, we have heard Netanyahu in recent years essentially come out and say that any agreement with Iran is, from his perspective, unacceptable because the Iranians don't follow it, don't adhere to it, and at any rate, an agreement with Iran legitimizes Iran, which I think he sees as being against Israel's interest, and he would rather deal with the nuclear issue and for the other issues that Iran is involved in through other means, not through diplomacy, but through confrontation of one sort or another. What this means for relations between the two capitals, of course, Washington and Jerusalem, of course, remains to be seen. But the Prime Minister, as you correctly said, Kalev, clearly staking out a position, including on the subset of agreement, the narrow deal, potentially between the United States.
Potentially is the key word. We'll have to see if the Biden administration will proceed with this or Iran itself.